Okay. Sorry, I forgot to do it at the beginning. So, but now we are recording, so all of you know, because we want to record James so we can hear him again.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you, Maya. As I was saying, it's always a delight to be here, and I always get a smile on my face when Maya starts doing her thing. So I really appreciate Reverend Maya and her gift of peace and quiet joy uh, and uh, and dancing consciousness. So thank you for that. So today I want to do the meditation after the talk. So I think you'll know why that is when we get there. The talk today is on global health and prosperity. It's part of this series on harmonizing the world. So this is what we've been thinking about the last few weeks in these Sunday talks. Is this idea of world harmony and what that might include. And so the focus today is on health and prosperity. In a harmonious world, people would commonly experience mental and physical health. That would be the norm. In some ways, it is the norm. When people experience, when people would experience mental and physical ailments, there would be ways to heal them in a harmonious world. In a harmonious world, people would commonly experience prosperity. All people would have decent housing, sufficient food, decent clothing, adequate health care. Poverty generates resentment, suffering, and crime. So the elimination of poverty would make the world more harmonious in those ways as well. Diminishment of, and perhaps even the elimination of crime and suffering in the world. Of course, governments can make policies that positively impact the population's general health and wealth. However, government policies alone cannot establish this harmony that we're speaking of, this global health and wealth. I've done some research on the relative health and wealth of the nations around the world. I won't go into statistics and rankings, but just share general conclusions of various studies. And health and prosperity are interrelated. The poorest nations also have the unhealthiest populations. They cannot access basic necessities nor adequate health care. The wealthiest nations tend to be healthier than the poorest ones. However, there's not a direct causation between health and wealth. The health of a nation is related to culture as well. The relative healthiness of traditional diets, for example, the relative amount of walking and other exercise that citizens engage in, and social bonds, the bonding, the friendships, the relationships. All those are contributing factors to the general health and wealth in any given nation. Now, there are perfectly unhealthy diets, fast food, junk food, lots of red meat, but there's no perfectly healthy diet. In general, the traditional diets of Mediterranean countries, Scandinavian countries, Japan, and Korea all seem to be relatively healthier than other types of diets. But again, health isn't just diet. Factors such as physical activity and social bonding also affect health. I believe, of course, as you would probably guess, that ultimately the most important factor is consciousness. Consciousness is not statistically measurable. Nevertheless, that is where everything starts. Spiritual consciousness that includes caring about others is what moves us to help each other, to change the world. Spiritual consciousness that includes faith is what makes progress possible. Spiritual consciousness that includes wisdom shows us the way to progress in harmonizing the world. Is far global health and prosperity possible? Yes. If I didn't think it was possible, I wouldn't bother talking about it. But what would that look like? And how would it be manifested? What would global health look like? For global health, it's not enough to focus only on one's own health or the health care of one's own country. Global health requires that we care about the health of other people in other nations, people we don't really know. And part of this is just common sense. Diseases can spread throughout the world from anywhere in the world. And so it's best for everywhere in the world to be healthy. These seem to be obvious facts. Global health requires a sufficient supply of nutritious food, good and accessible healthcare everywhere. It requires drinkable water and clean air. Mitigation of climate change is another important factor because increasingly severe flooding, hurricanes, forest fires, and other natural disturbances makes the environment less safe for everyone. Global health requires that we care about the global community. Therefore, the aspiration for world harmony is ultimately a spiritual aspiration, an aspiration of love, caring, compassion. That truth alone means that the spiritualization of individual and global consciousness is necessary for global health. Global health can only be attained if there is widespread spiritual illumination. And what would global prosperity look like? Currently, the richest 10% of the world population, take home 50% of the income. The poorest half of the world population earn about 8% of the income. And that's just income. It doesn't account for of property. The richest 10% own 76% of all wealth. 3/4 of the world's wealth is in the hands of 10% of the world population. The poorest half of the world population owns 2% of the wealth. The average union worker makes 100 times less than the average corporate CEO. The average minimum wage worker makes about 250 times less than a CEO. This wealth gap is not indicative of a state of global prosperity. The more impoverished people are, and the more impoverished people there are, the more they are exposed to suffering and the more prone they are to violence and illness. I'm not saying global prosperity requires that everyone have exactly equal income or that there would not be any wealthy people. I'm also not saying that everyone would need to be rich as we currently think of rich. Global prosperity probably would not mean that everyone drives one of their many expensive automobiles up their long driveways to their gold-plated mansions on large estates near oceans and lakes suitable for sailing their many yachts. First of all, there isn't enough ocean and lakefront property for the billions of people on the planet to each have a share of it. Also, who would build the expensive autos, yachts, and gold-plated mansions? Who would mine the gold? People who live the lifestyle of the rich and famous do not build the mansions, make the automobiles and yachts. They do not farm the food or care for the sick. In short, global prosperity could not be everyone living a life of conspicuous consumption and that's built on a life of leisure that's built on the work of others. There would probably still be some in a world of global prosperity who earned more than others, but the wealth gap need not be as absurd as it is now. Global prosperity would mean every person having enough income to live comfortably, decent housing, enough to eat, good health care, enough to buy some nice things and save some money. In other words, what we now think of as the middle class. Surely that is attainable, even if it means the richest 10% would only make 30% of the income or only own 30% of the wealth. Surely that would not be a great hardship on the richest 10%. Surely that would be a more harmonious world. The extent that poverty drives crime, hatred, and terrorism, global prosperity would greatly reduce those features of human existence. Now, how can global health and wealth be manifested according to spiritual principles? Just as effective government policies can improve healthcare, and help adjust economic inequities. Even so, the spread of spiritual consciousness can contribute to the health and more equitable distribution of wealth in the world. Last night, I had an illuminating dream. I'm not going to tell you all the details, but I connected with some longtime friends in the dream, and I was reminded of Bell's theorem. I'm not going to get real technical here. Bell's theorem is part of the whole quantum theory, and it's been proven over and over again. Bell's theorem is that information is transmitted between quantum particles instantaneously at long distances. This phenomenon is known as entanglement. And the quantum particles in us then are entangled with quantum particles in others. Information can be transmitted instantly. As it is at the quantum level, so it is at the spiritual level. We are entangled spiritually with those we care about, with those we think of. Our consciousness of divine healing, prospering presence is intimately entangled with the consciousness of others. We can instantly transmit spiritual truth, our consciousness of the presence, to anyone we think of. Consider what silent unity has been doing for the past 130 years. Here is this ongoing work of a small group of individuals praying with people all over the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for over 130 years. Every day, people are blessed with healing through prayer in this ministry. Every day, people receive prosperity blessings through prayer. Those who are blessed by the Silent Unity Ministry don't just get a temporary relief from challenges. More importantly, their consciousness gets spiritualized. They have a stronger sense of the presence and action of spirit in their lives. They experience the reality of the divine. Some discover the truth that they themselves are divine spiritual beings. Some go into spiritual work themselves. In this way, a small group of people contributes much to the spiritualizing of the consciousness of the planet. This prayer work brings a greater degree of harmony into the world. Every day, every moment, Silent Unity is praying. And Silent Unity has generated other similar prayer workers in other lands. There are now Silent Unity ministries in South Africa, the Caribbean, Mexico, Australia, United Kingdom, Germany, and Africa. The work is spreading. And part of the beauty of the idea of Silent Unity is that anyone can join into this prayer work in their everyday lives. We can help harmonize the world. Perhaps it is only a little at a time, but it is cumulative. At some point, if we keep this going, the collective consciousness will reach a critical mass of spiritualization, and the whole world will be harmonious in ways far transcending our fondest and most optimistic hopes and imaginings. Anytime we read, hear, or think of someone who needs healing or increased supply, we can quickly give them an effective spiritual treatment, just as if they had called Silent Unity. Effective spiritual treatment does not mean that every time you do a treatment or prayer work, as it's usually called, it does not mean that every time the person will immediately experience healing or supply. Sometimes it will be almost immediate. Sometimes it won't be immediate. Other times there may be no discernible change. Effective treatment, effective spiritual treatment, effective prayer means that you have experienced the presence and reality of spirit and connected at some level, perhaps a subconscious level, with someone. What can't be guaranteed is that every person is ready or receptive. We cannot impose our will on others, but we can bless those who are ready and receptive, even if they are not aware that we have prayed for them. This is the one thing that's been seen over and over again in silent unity. When people request prayer for others, the others may not know that they're being prayed for and yet have a response. Effective spiritual treatment is a cooperative action. It involves the infinite and universal mind or spirit that we call God. It involves the one who is acting as a vehicle for the treatment, and it involves the one who is receiving the treatment. And so, just as we must be ready and receptive in giving a treatment, so, in some sense, to some degree, those we pray for must also be ready and receptive. We cannot impose our will on others. So, how can we do effective spiritual treatment? It begins with personal spiritual practice. Silent unity workers devote at least 30 minutes a day to spiritual practice and meditation. It's actually scheduled into their workday. Most, of course, devote more time than that to their practice, but during their workday, there's that period when they are focused in solely on the divine presence. And when they are praying with others all day, they're also doing their personal practice. They are using affirmations, they are generating spiritual consciousness as they pray with others. So we must have this personal practice, whatever it may be. We must spend time getting a feel for the presence of God. If I were retitling this talk, I would call it Feeling the Presence, the feel for the presence of God. When we spend time every day directing our attention to the reality and presence of spirit, eventually we recognize the feeling of the presence and we can call it up quickly in our consciousness. Of course, there are many ways to practice the presence. Practice may consist of using a 5-step prayer approach, as is taught in Unity, or simply contemplating affirmations, contemplating the attributes of God. We might practice visualizing light or engaging in certain rituals. Or we may even be just silently receptive. The more we practice, the less need we have for words and images to sense the presence. It's almost a matter of remembering and feeling. What does this presence feel like? Well, I cannot adequately describe it. And mystics through the ages have basically said the same thing. Presence may feel like love, peace, harmony, bliss, energy, perhaps all of this at once. And yet these words don't convey the feeling. But I assure you, and you probably already know, that you know it when you feel it. This presence may sometimes overwhelm us, so we seem almost to dissolve in it. But more often, it may just feel like a little shift in our mind and feelings. But still, we know it when we feel it. Jesus called this consciousness the kingdom of God within you. He also called it not worrying. He called it love and faith. He compared it to leaven mixed into flour, a little seed growing, the discovery of buried treasure or priceless pearl. This experience is invisible, expansive, joyful. When we get that sense of shift, when we recognize the feeling, when we are able to do this again and again, we are ready to do effective treatment. And that's really all there is to it, feeling the presence. Then when we encounter or hear of someone who needs spiritual healing or supply or some other harmonization of their life, we can give spiritual treatment right in that moment. As we think of the person, we simply recall the feeling of the presence. We hold the thought that that same feeling, that same reality is right there in the midst of them. We might visualize them immersed in light, if that is helpful, and oftentimes it is. But I think the main thing is not words or images, but just this feeling of the presence. It may be like you are right there with the person and sharing the feeling with them or impressing it on them. Once you feel the presence and the connection, you've done all you need to in the moment. You can release the situation knowing that the spirit within them will do whatever is needed. As they say, we turn it over to God. We let go and let God. Doing effective spiritual treatment, again, takes intentional practice. In addition to daily devotion and time set aside for prayer and meditation, we can make a habit of giving spiritual treatment to anyone we hear of who is experiencing a health challenge, right in that moment, just in that instant. Now, it is best not to be concerned about results. The more we focus on results, the more we get caught up in ego. When we are caught up in ego, we are not caught up in spirit. Being caught up in spirit is where spiritual work is done. Do not underestimate the power of this practice. You never know when a brief spiritual treatment can result in a dramatic healing or demonstration of supply. But that is not your responsibility or concern. Spirit does the work. We can only be conduits for that work, for spirit. Openness and receptivity to the divine presence are keys to the work. But when we have that experience, we also know that we are entangled with the one we pray with. In addition to practicing the presence and doing spiritual treatments, there are other things, of course, we can do to spiritualize, to promote the spiritualization of global consciousness. Other things that we can do to promote health, global health, and harmony and prosperity. As citizens, of course, we can support policies and organizations that seem to contribute to improving and expanding healthcare. We can support policies and organizations that are helpful for increasing the general distribution of wealth. Such outer expressions help move us in the direction of global harmony. And again, any of that sort of work, any of that sort of support is spiritually motivated. It comes from spirit. It comes from the spirit of love and caring. But ultimately, the general spiritualization of consciousness is the thing that contributes most to the harmonization of the world because it all begins in consciousness. Spiritualization alone increases love in the world. Love is a spirit that moves us to bless others. Love harmonizes us individually and collectively. The spiritualization of consciousness heals, prospers, and enlightens us. We can support the spiritualization of consciousness by supporting the work of unity. We can call silent unity for ourselves and others. We can support the expansion of the unity movement through tithes of time, talent, and treasure. You never know. You may even feel a calling to minister in unity in some way. Now, this is not to say, of course, that only unity spiritualizes the global consciousness. There are mystics in every tradition who are part of this collaboration, if you will, this cooperation for spiritualizing consciousness. But my point is that unity does spiritualize consciousness as much as any other movement. It has been transformational for me and for others I know. And so, of course, I believe in supporting unity. Now, I would like to close this time together doing a spiritual treatment. So I'm going to lead you through sort of how I do treatment, realizing that this isn't the only way. So be open to whatever the spirit directs in you. So I'll be there as a sort of background to your experiencing of the divine presence. And I invite you to, in this time, think of a person now, one person in your heart that you want to bless with this consciousness of omnipresence. It may be for healing, supply, harmonization, or relationship, whatever it is, someone who is on your mind that you care for, that you are spiritually entangled with. Bring that person to mind at the beginning. And remember, too, that when you give a treatment for others, you are also giving a treatment in your own consciousness. In a sense, you are giving to yourself. So I invite you now to join me in this work of prayer, this work of what I like to call spiritual treatment. I invite you, first of all, to find a comfortable position and begin to relax. And I will just be speaking aloud what's going on in my consciousness as I seek this feeling, this experience of the divine presence. And again, you can follow those words, use those words, or use some other way that you are accustomed to, whatever brings you into this consciousness of the divine presence, this feeling of the divine presence. So now I relax. I direct my attention fully and intentionally to the reality of God, the infinite mind. So I direct my attention to infinite mind. I immediately become aware that this mind is omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence. This mind or spirit, this energy, this intelligence is not something apart from the universe, but encompasses and pervades it, encompasses and pervades my field of consciousness that includes my body and includes those I think of, those I love. As I bring them to mind and in my heart, I know that this reality is also there, this infinite mind. With God, all things are possible. God is infinite, encompassing and pervading all things. And I know that this reality, this presence, is characterized by peace. I am open and receptive to this divine peace, this stillness, this undisturbed calmness and serenity. It is a primary quality, the infinite mind. Direct my attention to peace, the infinite peace of God. I know that a primary quality of spirit, of infinite mind, is perfect unity, perfect oneness. I feel this oneness as love, passion, caring, kindness, affection, benevolence. So all words that reflect this indescribable unity and love that God is. I let the presence of divine love fill my consciousness. Feel this feeling of oneness, God with the universe, with anyone and everyone I think of, anyone and everyone I call to mind. We are one in divine love. So this peace and this love pervade our consciousness. The infinite mind is infinitely creative. The root of all blessings, at the root of all prosperity. Creative ideas. Infinite mind is infinite creative ideas. And so I'm open and receptive to those ideas that are for me. And I recognize that this creativity is everywhere, in everyone. But there are ideas that may prosper and illuminate, to guide and bless everyone on the planet, anyone I think of. The infinite creativity of infinite mind is now working in and through you, working in and through me. Remain open and receptive to this primary quality of infinite mind, creativity. Creativity flows through me. Infinite mind is infinite intelligence, understanding, harmony. Divine intelligence harmonizes the world. Divine harmony harmonizes us. Divine intelligence is perfect wisdom to guide us. So I am open and receptive to the infinite intelligence of infinite mind, to let wisdom guide my thoughts and harmonize my experience. As it is in me, so it is in all. Divine wisdom guides me. Infinite mind is the source of all substance, and so that substance is infinite. It is not matter, but divine ideas. Divine ideas are the substance of the cosmos. Everything has form, and behind every form is the idea of form, and that is the substance of the cosmos, and it is infinite. And so I release all thoughts of lack and scarcity. I am open and receptive to the infinite substance that is in me and in anyone and everyone I think of. The infinite substance of infinite mind is capable of prospering the whole world. So I hold to this truth of infinite substance. Regardless of appearances, I release those appearances and am knowing there is more than enough for all, and that more than enough is now flowing freely over the whole planet, knocking at the door of consciousness to prosper us. Infinite substance prospers us. Primary quality of this infinite mind is life. Consciousness is life, and life is consciousness. In the very awareness of consciousness, I am aware of life. I am life, as God is life. Where there is consciousness, there is life. And where there is life, there is consciousness. And this life, this consciousness, fills the universe. The human brain is not its only vehicle for operation. This infinite consciousness and life is everywhere. It is this life that flows through us and energizes us and gives us vitality and health and strength. I am open to the feeling and the energy of divine life right now, and I am holding that divine life is present in to strengthen and heal and energize anyone and everyone I think of. Infinite life energizes and strengthens us. Infinite life gives us health, open and receptive to the presence and reality of infinite life. In infinite mind, all things are perfectly mathematically arranged, mathematics of light and sound, of laws. These are all elements of the divine order and divine mind. Divine order is always present and manifesting. We use the laws of mind. We are simply being conscious of this divine order. This divine order that is infinite must prevail throughout the planet. It is operative everywhere, and so we seek to align with divine order. I am open and receptive to divine order. Divine order is now established in my mind, body, and affairs. Divine order is the very presence of God. Divine order is now established in my mind, body, and affairs. All these qualities of infinite mind are all ideas of the divine good that is ours to receive, that is manifesting in us, as us, and through us. The infinite good cannot be confined to words or thoughts. The infinite good is present and recognizable, and we can feel it. We can feel it as peace, love, joy, bliss. So now, in the stillness and the silence, I am completely open and receptive, silently receptive, silently feeling the divine presence and knowing that presence is also with everyone I pray for and with. Now, fully focus my attention only on the reality of the divine presence in silence. As you now feel this divine presence, I invite you to think of the one or ones you are praying with and just know and feel that presence with them. knowing that your care for them entangles you with them as you hold them in that presence, perhaps visualizing them or seeing them as beings of light, however you connect. Just feeling your affection for them. Know that that presence that you feel, that reality that you feel, the divine good, the Spirit, God, is right there with them now. Right there. We let this divine kingdom expand like the mustard seed that Jesus spoke of. Let us visualize spaceship Earth, this beautiful blue orb, has no separation. As we hold this orb in this consciousness of the divine presence, we are spiritualizing the consciousness of the world. We are harmonizing the planet, not of our own will, of our own ego, of our own consciousness, but simply by tapping into that divine reality, that divine presence that is everywhere doing this work. We rejoice and give thanks, O blessed Spirit, that your divine love, light, and life are continually harmonizing our world. We give thanks for that in a consciousness of our innate divinity, in the consciousness of Christ, the Buddha, Krishna, consciousness of illumined beings. We now see the world being healed, being harmonized, being prospered. And we are grateful, and so it is. Amen. Thank you for joining me in this time of prayer, a little bit longer than I usually do. And
Beautiful.
bless you.
And I recognize this is our last Sunday with you. So it was very good that you took us along into prayer a little more today. We will have you back. I understand we talk about that for December. So we thank you. We say goodbye and till next time. I'm going to stop recording.